Hey, welcome to Skeleton Crew Review. I'm Tommy D, and pilot of the infamous Parma Flyer, it's Krash. How's it going?
Great. S4 is locked and ready to roll. Let's do it.
There you go. I like to hear that. All right, so, of course, camera's already being wonky. So, Skeleton Crew Season 1, Episode 4. Krash, I have questions. I have theories. There's so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so much. And I don't even know where to start. I'm just staring down the barrel of this huge list of things here in front of me, and I don't know where to start. I guess we'll start at the beginning, huh?
Yeah, might as well. And
right,
first off, let's just throw the Star Wars Goonies thing out the window. Like, we're going places with this show, I think. Besides just a remake of an 80s movie. There's some depth to this show now.
Mm-hmm. One thing now, some people may or may not get this, but so we learned about last episode. Kim told us about, what was it, the jewels of the Republic, the hidden planet. I think that's what it was. So these 6 planets that for whatever reason were hidden. We haven't discovered that yet, and I'm looking forward to finding out why. So we found out about those things, and after seeing at Akron this week, the thing that instantly popped into my brain was Vault Tech. I had mentioned that before, how stuff was feeling a little Vault Tech-y. So if you're familiar with Fallout, for those of you that are watching or listening, if any of you are familiar with Fallout, you get it. If you're not, briefly, the whole premise of the Fallout games and now the TV series, post-apocalyptic wasteland, bombs dropped, people went into these vaults to escape the apocalyptic nuclear hellfire, only to reemerge in some cases hundreds of years later. But the company that put these together, Vault Tech, it's theorized that they actually engineered the war in order to sell space in the vault. But then also there were dozens of vaults. Each vault had a separate experiment going on inside of it. So some vaults, I think there was like one vault where it was just nothing was happening. It was allowed to just kind of go on its own. But then others had very specific things going on in them. And if anyone's going to get into the lore of Fallout, I don't want to ruin anything. But there were several dozen vaults, and each one had kind of like their own experiment. I was getting those vibes here. It's like, all right, so we know At Atten is the utopia. But like all utopias, it's a flawed utopia. I'm sure there's going to be some sinister underbelly. But then we see at Akron, and this is the war world. This is clearly the opposite of the utopia. And I'm like, oh, I feel like that's where the kids are going now. Like, in order to get back home, we're going to have to hit the other 4 planets now. And we have 4 episodes left.
Yeah, and that's the thing that struck me most, other than the fact that now I spent 2-3 weeks learning how to say at Atten. Now we got at Akron, at Cuyahoga Falls, at Kent. For us Ohio people, you'll get the joke,
right?
But, it's interesting that the planets are nearly identical, and I liked how when they go to Neil's house, or what it would have been Neil's house on his world, the first thing they notice is that the tree has grown bigger than they are. It's like walking into a replica of your home and going, wait a minute, everything's slightly different. I agree. There's going to be a bit of duplication involved. There might be like alternate, experimental communities, which is this a commentary on suburbia in the 80s, where everybody was making copycat neighborhoods in the suburbs, cookie cutter developments,
right?
Who knows? But that's an interesting way of, and I love how the kid's first reaction was, did we travel in time? Like in the story, did we, like Buck Rogers in the original movie, he gets frozen and comes back to his homeland, but it's, years later.
Right.
I love that the first reaction was like, wait, maybe this is home and we're just older.
Right. So I wasn't really expecting. I was hoping that they wouldn't do that because I love Star Trek, but I hate time travel. I feel like I share that with all of the other captains except maybe Archer. I think Archer was cool with time travel. I don't know, but I'm a Voyager fan. Janeway hated time travel and she hated all of that, but the temporal anomalies. So I was really hoping that they weren't going to do that in Star Wars, and they didn't. So I'm glad for that. I'm glad that we got to see that.
Yeah.
So one thing that also popped into my head, on our other show, Star Wars Safespace, we talk about Palpatine's influence in everything, especially now that we're talking about the Clone Wars. So this popped into my brain too, and I want to ask you, Krash.
Okay.
Do you think, at this point, we know that we are in the New Republic Mandalorian era. We know that. So Papa Palpy is no longer with us in person. Now, publicly, Papa Palpy is not with us, but as we find out, he's lurking. He's still around somewhere. During his era, when Palpatine was alive and kicking, do you think that he was aware of these jewels? And if so, was he involved in some way in their creation? Was he kind of like was he the architect? Or was he maybe seeking them out? Or was he just 100% aware and unbothered? What do you think?
Honestly, I think this is what we talked about this on the other show, where I think if he's not directly involved in something, he has a hand in it. He has other people doing his dirty work with it. I found it interesting that for At-Aten being the hidden world, the Atlantis, the El Dorado of these worlds, that At-Akron is out there and they trade with the outside world. Like the guy said, we just trade like our hides and stuff for bullets, basically. And whatever I noticed a lot of repeated props. Like you saw the helmets on some of those guys,
mud troopers. Mud trooper. The guy had the goggles. He had the mud trooper goggles and the helmet.
And the tank looked like a very
separatist
Federation style, maybe early model tank, which kind of makes me believe this experiment, whatever this is, again, as we talked in past episodes of this, I think this predates the prequel trilogy as far as their isolation, which would explain why they have older tech. And now that there's one of the worlds is, shall we say, out of the bubble.
Yeah.
They're getting scraps for trade.
Because we got to see the orbit. We didn't get to see this with At-Aten, but we got to see that barrier defense network. It's obviously non-operational now, but we can assume that there's something similar around At-Aten, which creates that barrier and keeps the planet in the bubble. So, but that just leads to more questions. Like, how did they go offline? How long have they been offline? How long have they been known to the rest of the galaxy? It wasn't, Smee didn't have At-Akron purged from his memory. So, he was like, I know it well. I've been here before. Arg, whatever. Yeah. So so many questions.
Yeah, and the best part is, I don't like. I like the fact that they're not answering everything right away. They're leaving some stuff unanswered for us to to pull us along and make us want. Theories are fun for a while, and then when you give me a little bit more, maybe answer a few, maybe introduce a few along the way. I have some thoughts about the At-Akron build the school, like as Neil said, having a weapon built in. Does that mean that At-Aten's building is also armed? But maybe the locals don't know because they never kept up.
There's been no need for it.
There's been no need for it. Nobody knows how to access that. which could become interesting later on. I feel with Neil and the kids seeing another version of their home,
right,
that can defend itself.
This is that version that the adults try to keep very well hidden on At-Aten. But I agree with you. I believe that the school on At-Aten more than likely has that sort of giant orbital, type of cannon built into it, or they're probably all over the planet as a secondary line of defense. Right. I'm thinking every single planet is set up identically. So we got that from the kids. The kids said, "Hey, that looks just like the supervisor's tower, or that looks like where my mom works. This is the school," So everything is set up. And the house that they went to, it was a very similar mural,
right,
on the wall. You couldn't really make a lot of it. I paused it like 27 times, but it's like they made sure we didn't get a good look at it. So it's going to be interesting to see how these parallels are going to play out, as we move forward. And I'm sure the kids are going to start piecing it all together, because they're going to go to the next planet and they're going to see the similarities there, and they're going to start putting the pieces together. And I found it interesting when the Onyx Cinder was coming in, it switched over to autopilot. And then Smee disengaged. Yeah, he did the override on it. So I'm curious, where was it going? It knew where it wanted to go, because I don't think that it was anything planet side that grabbed it. It wasn't like a tractor beam, or it wasn't anything planet side, because otherwise Smee wouldn't have been able to override it. So he was able to override it locally, which leads me to believe that ship was going somewhere. Something was plugged into the autopilot to send it somewhere, maybe coordinates for At-Aten. But of course, if all these worlds, mirror each other, then it's possible that wherever it landed, wherever the ship wanted to land on At-Akron, it would potentially land in that same spot on At-Aten.
Which makes you wonder how it ended up in the woods, and I'm assuming it couldn't have been on that long. But how did it crash land on one planet if it was pre-programmed for a destination on each, on an identical world from, was something overridden? Did somebody pull the plug on the autopilot track that it was on, and that's what caused it to crash into the woods?
Because
who knows?
We're going to find out, because the Onyx Cinder was buried for a long time.
Yeah.
It had trees growing on top of it. So it's potentially over 100 years that thing was buried. Which would get us somewhere between the Acolyte and the prequel trilogy, if we're talking about that old. And then when we see the supervisor's tower on At-Akron, that was some thick layers of dust on all of the coordinates. I mean, no one's been in there for a while.
And all of it going up to poor Neil's snout.
All of it going up poor Neil's snout. And John said something interesting. He said the planet tastes like dust and ash, like my home world. So now it's like, where are you from, John? Who the hell are you? How did you do the Jedi stuff? I need to know. It's killing me.
I think it was just sort of self-taught. Iba wanted that thing where, I don't know how to sail. I'll just, concentrate, practice, meditate.
But he had to get it. He had to get it from somewhere. I mean, because people in the galaxy, they know of Jedi, but unless they do happen to have a higher midichlorian count, they'll pretend all day to use the Force and nothing's going to happen. Because of course, what kid, doesn't want to be a Jedi? They're the knights, of course, who doesn't want to be a knight and go on adventures and things like that. So I'm still leaning towards Padawan with him. I'm still the age.
It could be. He could have been a youngling, even with just the basic, level of training. And, we know some people escape. So we know people, some Jedi were helping younglings escape. And it's quite possible a low level kid escaped the temple, how did Kanan Jarrus survive after he got
Right.
separated? You find a way to make a living. If it's piracy, oh well.
What if Jod, and this is such a stretch, and I know before I even say it, I know. Just humor me. What if Jod is the little boy the little youngling who's like, Master Skywalker, there's too many of them. What are we going to do? What if that's Jod? And he like somehow escaped, because I don't think like we don't ever see Anakin, slaughter children, but I'm pretty sure he probably force pushed that kid, and maybe he tumbled over a chair or something, and then Anakin goes, I want that to be
not
it.
to give too much away. We know in Kenobi, he stabbed Reva in the belly and left her for she played dead.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not unheard of. It's probably low level unlikely. I'm gonna do my K2SO for my do you want to know the odds of that happening? It's low. It's very low.
So unfortunately, as we've also learned with Star Wars, the only person who dies from a gut shot is Qui-Gon. Apparently everybody else is good. Everybody else who gets stabbed in the gut is okay. Everyone else pulls through. Reva pulls through. Sabine pulls through. It's okay. But Qui-Gon just gave up the ghost just with that one poke. It wasn't even a good one. It wasn't even a good poke. He's like, yeah. I mean, and the wound cauterizes. He gave up the Force Ghost on purpose, I think. That's a whole other show.
Yeah, we ain't got time for that one.
We ain't got time. All right, so we talked about the Imperial gear. We talked about the autopilot. We got to see the softer side of Jod a little bit.
I liked him in this episode. We were going back and forth about who is he. I think this was more of a Jod being himself. Maybe not Captain Silva, maybe not Crimson Jack. Last week I said I think a lot of that are personas that people in his profession like to. Nobody gives their real name at the bar. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that, but I think now this partnership he's proposing. He knows, he's got to kind of trying to be on the level, because he wants. He still wants to find treasure. If these kids are from the mythical planet of Ad-Ad, it's like, okay, look, I got a fairly decent thing going here. And I think we're starting to see a little bit more of his generous side, his compassionate side, his friendlier side than when he was a pirate captain, raiding ships for a living.
Right. But is it, and that's what I wanted to ask too. Is it a soft side? Is it the soft side of Jod Nanawood, or is he just playing the game to win their trust? He's like, oh, I need the kids. Come with me. Oh, hugs. Let's hug everybody. But he's still a murdering bastard. I mean, he's maybe not by his, although he was straight up trying to sauce Kim. He was trying to take Kim out.
Was he? I mean, he shot the computer. He was firing
at her. Like he sent our Republic captain out the airlock in the first episode.
When he was a pirate a professional pirate. I'm sure he's done some bad things.
Sure,
Han Solo has done some bad things. I'm sure before he met the Luke and Ben.
Oh, Han is a murdering bastard as well.
But I think, like I said, is it 100% sincere? Maybe not. We'll find out. But it was interesting to see him actually taking not an active role, but he's honoring the partnership because it benefits him.
Exactly.
And the kids get if the kids get killed on this planet, because they stumbled into the wrong camp, he gets nothing. I love that moment when he gets captured and he's like, he goes, oh, just shoot me. Like there comes a point where you're just like, oh, the hell with it.
But again, like we talked about before, he's you can't help but see the parallels between him and Jack Sparrow. You know, he's once again looking for the opportune moment.
Right.
He had been in that cell on, what is it, Borgo? Is that the name of the pirate asteroid? He was in that cell for a very long time. I mean, judging off the manner of his clothing, he'd been in there for a while. So he can wait. He knows how to be patient. He knows how to bide his time. He knows what he needs to do in order to survive. He's waiting for the opportune moment.
I mean, he was going through the kids' stuff and he found the money and he kept a little of it. And yes, he used it to help them out of a jam.
That was nasty, by the way.
Yeah.
That was nasty.
Yeah.
Because that was in Wim's sock. And he pulled it out and he bit that credit. That was in Wim's sock. That was not a money bag. That was not a coin purse. That wasn't a pouch. That was Wim's little motherfucking sweaty sock. And they have not bathed during this entire adventure that we're aware of. I mean, maybe there's a refresher on, you know, on I would imagine there's somewhere where they can evacuate somewhere on this, but I don't think they're washing their clothes.
Yeah, I was gonna say nobody's doing laundry. That's for
no one's doing laundry. No one in Star Wars ever does laundry. Like everyone always. That's why we love the weathering portion of when we put our kits together, because no one does laundry. Nobody cleans their shit. Everything's always dirty and filthy, and that's part of the reason. But he took that sock money into his mouth and he nibbled on it to make sure it was real, and that had sweaty boy sweat on it, and that's just nasty. You're a nasty fellow, Jod, and I can't get past that. I can't get past that. So speaking of the children, we get to see the kids really starting to come into their own. Like they're starting to really discover who they are. And, you know, we get to see Neil, you know, with, what's her name? Hannah, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the French revolutionary who parkours everywhere for some reason. I mean, she doesn't need to, but she can. So I guess why not? So that was nice. He got a little smooch, had a little tender moment, but we really got to see his level of maturity too. That was cat butt everywhere.
Yeah, we had an Anna sighting. Yeah, and fun fact, apparently Neil's a lover, not a fighter. Let's give the boy some street cred.
Yeah. Well done, sir. Well done indeed. He knows what's going on.
And that was a great moral. I mean, joking aside, his mindset about how fighting is stupid and you should make a peace, and also great moral to slip into this story for kids. Well, like you said, Star Wars is a kid's morality tale at its heart. That was a great lesson to squeeze into the middle of this kind of dark at times story.
Yeah, I agree. And it was nice to see them all really starting to solidify individually. You know, we get to see Neil. He's becoming that moral compass. He knows right from wrong. And despite the fact that he does get scared, he's clearly not a coward. And I love how they do that when that asshole General Strix was like, yeah, send the Q guys go in first.
Yeah.
You know, Neil.
We honor our children.
Yeah.
That
guy's a douche. But so they're going out there. Neil actually takes point. He just is walking. He admits to being terrified, but he does it anyway. And that's true courage. And I love that they're showing that, because you can still be scared and still be brave. And exactly. I love that they pointed that out. You know, we see the burden of leadership really weighing on Fern. So she's really starting to solidify and come into her own.
There were a few. There was a great moment where you saw, for as tough as she acts, even in the first episode with that speeder bike, the bully, the racing kid, she puts on a tough face in public, but after a while you could tell like this is weigh on her, and even though she's I'm Captain Fern. It's like you're also a kid and you're
Right.
lost and you're scared, and it's okay to be scared. I like her exchange with him about, you know, where it's like I wouldn't have gotten us this far. For the kid
Right.
who dreams of adventure has to kind of admit,
Right.
like, I'm the sidekick. I get it.
He gets it. Yeah. And it was nice to see Fern, take on that vulnerability. Again, that sends a message to kids watching this that you can be a leader and still be vulnerable at the same time. I love it. That was a master stroke. And then we have Wim, who is now, after this episode, he is my favorite character, because I feel like Wim represents every single Star Wars fan when they were a kid. He gets scared for a second, like it's like a jump scare sort of thing, and then he is completely unbothered by what's going on around him. He's having fun. I mean, he has his pretend lightsaber. He picks up a pipe. You're on this unknown world, potentially trapped, lost in space. You don't know where to go, and you pick up a pipe and pretend that it's a lightsaber, and you're playing. And like everyone else is like so serious, and Wim is just having the fucking time of his life. And I feel like he is the quintessential inner child of every Star Wars fan, and they've just cast that. they reached into my past and pulled my inner child out of me and put it on the screen. And I absolutely love Wim for that.
There've been some great interviews with some of the directors, mostly the adults behind the scene, but the kids, they're starting to the press tour stuff starting to come out, and you don't necessarily want to hire a kid actor to tell them to play a part. You sort of build the part around their personality. I think they asked the girl playing Fern who her favorite Star Wars character is, and she said Han Solo. And you can see that in the way they've written her character, the scruffy, rebellious leader, captain type. Wim, I'm sure it was the same. I think he said Luke Skywalker was his, and you can see that in the way he picks up the stick. When he gets in the turrets and they're shooting at the X-wing,
it's having fun.
He's having fun. They were not conserving blaster bolts by any means.
No, he's just having the best time. Like he's in his element, as dangerous as it is. Like even when they were put on point and they were walking down, Neil, out of all of them, I would say that he was the bravest soul among them, but only in that Wim just didn't give a shit. Like he doesn't care. So he doesn't care enough to be afraid because it's just fun. He's almost died. I don't know how many times. And he's just fucking having fun, man. And I love that he's written that way. And I love that he's playing that part so brilliantly to express that.
They arrived at Akron, excuse me, and they're looking down. They're like, "Oh, look, there's," and his first reaction was to slump in the chair, like, "Oh, it's over." It's like when you go on your first ride at Cedar Point, you go on the Millennium Force, you go up the big hill and down and around, and then as you're pulling into the station, you're like, "It's over."
Is it? Well, look at like when they landed on that moon in the last episode to go see Kim, he was riding out on the loading claw. Like, and John was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm playing." Like, it's like you're on an alien moon with magical atmosphere and gravity, but you're on an alien moon for the first time. You're lost in space again, and you just want to ride the loading dock claw because why not? It's there.
Yeah.
Wim is my spirit animal. He is the inner child of every Star Wars fan. Like,
I agree.
And I just absolutely love it. General Strix, speaking of that douchebag, clearly he knows about AT-AT. Because did you see when they asked him, he was like, "No, we don't know anything about AT-AT. No, No, I don't know what you're talking about.
All we know is our patrols and our enemies and what flag.
Yeah,
You know, this is all there is. Yeah,
we trade for weapons and hide. That's what we do.
I'd be shocked if the daughter knows about the tower and that it's something important, but you're telling me that none of the adults have ever gone up there. None of the adults have ever looked around. Nobody ever thought to use that place as a base of operations, and nobody's explored that part of the city.
Right. So I'm thinking if all of this, the initial hunt for Ad-Aten, and with Smee having been on Ad-Akron, I'm thinking that, again, probably well over 100 years ago, if not 100 years, because Star Wars likes to do things in 100-year increments sometimes. So I'm guessing that the events that took place in the supervisor's tower at that time, it has become the stuff of legend now. So they don't whoever was alive at that time is probably not alive anymore, or they're very, very, very old. And these stories have been handed down orally for decades. So they don't go to the supervisor's tower anymore. But, at the time, it was probably known this pirate crew attacked, got the information they needed, bugged out. And I mean, it was probably a catastrophe. But Smee said that they snuck past the warriors. So apparently that war had been going on even then.
Yeah. And the pirates, knowing that Smee and his previous owners had been to this world, while there was still fresh knowledge of the fact that they were part of a larger system of planets, they've tracked the legend down kind of where we are now with the kids.
Right.
But, other people have been searching for this place and got to step, at Akron stage, like we were saying earlier, if Palpatine had any knowledge of this, how much, does the Empire, does the outside world know about these planets? If pirates and other people have already kind of staked a claim on certain worlds.
Mm-hmm. So again, so many questions, and no real answers. Like we got like a few little pieces, but still no concrete answers. So I don't know. It's been a fun ride so far. This was not my favorite episode, to be fair. It was okay. It was a good episode. It was decent. It had necessary information, and there's build up. Not my favorite episode, but it was still fun. So
what do you think about Smee's SM33's I say his dark side? I was the thing that drew me in about this episode is how quickly he turned dark on the it's cute to have an old clunky droid following you around and taking orders from a kid, but as soon as he started really like, oh, I've been here and I've had my Fern does the droid command trick to kind of circumvent the memory lock. It got me thinking back to the first episode, and when in this episode when he like puts Jod up against the wall and lifts him up, he expands to raise him. Immediately thought about those skeletons we find, and the one with the dagger through its chest, off like the ground. He was lifted up and then yoinked. Yeah. And I'm sitting there going, did SM33 kill them? Because when we first saw the dead bodies, we thought maybe the crew fought amongst themselves, and that's why they crashed.
But
could
maybe
SM33 have done it?
That's a great theory, because he himself said, the captain told me if anyone starts poking around, I'm supposed to rip them apart limb from limb.
Right.
But maybe that command override didn't exclude the captain. So once they got to Ad-Aten, Smee's prerogative was, his order, no one's poking around. So that means you, Captain, rip.
Yeah. quick. That was like the juicy part of this episode for me. Not just in the way how dark it got and how for a kid's adventure, it's like, ooh, this is when things start getting scary kind of moment. But for SM-33, all of a sudden I'm like, did he off the crew or what was left of the crew? And that's where the bodies came from on the ship. How that ship crashed, we don't know yet. But I'm your captain. You get to El Dorado, and all of a sudden your droid decides, oh hey, stab, rip everything. He might order 66 his own crew.
That's a really interesting theory. I didn't think about that. I like that. So Smee sauced the captain and whoever else was in there, probably the first mate, I would imagine, somebody else. I don't know.
Yeah. Good soldiers follow orders.
Good soldiers follow orders. We've learned that from Dave as well. So yikes. All right. So predictions for next week. That's going to be, I should note too that we'll be taking 2 weeks off for the holidays. So we will return. Our next episode will be out on January 8th. Well, no, it'll be out on January 9th because we record on the 8th and we'll be out. So that's going to be episode 5 and 6 and 7 that we're going to cover in our next podcast. So predictions for episode 5, 6, and 7.
I think we're going to see more of Brutus and the pirates either trailing the kids and Jod. They didn't just let that ship go. They want Jod back. I think they, or at the very least, they want to get him for breaking out of, I think we're going to start seeing the baddies show up again, and now they're going to be chasing the kids.
Yeah. Yep. That's a good call. I agree. I think that somewhere in 5, 6, and 7, we're going to get a cameo. I don't know exactly who it's going to be, obviously. I hope it's Hondo. I think that there's whispers, there's rumors going around that we may see Cara Dune again. She may be coming out of exile, perhaps. I don't know. There's, again, whispers and rumors. Who knows if that's true or not? If it's true, this could potentially be a vehicle for her to make her return. The kids are in trouble. Who better to save them than this badass Republic drop trooper to come in and save the day? Or we're going to get Grogu and Neil together in the same scene, and the entire internet is going to implode, and everyone, and it's going to cause
overload.
It's going to be a cuteness singularity, and it's going to create a black hole that sucks the world and everything around it inside, and then we're all going to die. But the last things we see are Neil holding Grogu, and then
showing him the circus hologram from the holiday special.
Yeah. Oh my God. Krash. See, now that got even worse. Okay. All right. So, that's going to do it for us this week. Thank you for joining us. Again, we are going to be taking the next 2 weeks off for the holidays. So please, have a very happy and safe holiday. Whatever you celebrate, please, do it as responsibly as possible. That doesn't mean don't get in any trouble. Please, by all means, do get into trouble. Just don't get hurt and don't get caught. So maybe that needs to be our new outro catchphrase for this, since we are scoundrels ourselves and we're talking about pirates. Don't get hurt, don't get caught.
Sounds about right.
That's our exit. All right. So until next time, look for us again on the 8th, and also new episodes of our main podcast, Star Wars Safespace, are going to be debuting on January 14th. So we'll record on the 10th and drop on the 14th. So look forward to that. And over the holiday, catch up on our old episodes, stuff you haven't listened to yet. So tell your friends, tell your enemies, depending on how much you love or hate either. And sometime in that time frame, I'm going to fix my camera, because It's been bugging out on me this entire time. Anyway, all right. Krash, thank you for joining us.
Always fun.
Great holiday as well.
Same to you guys.
Don't get hurt. Don't get caught. And we'll see you next time.
Later.
All right. Bye, everybody.